This episode may contain adult themes and explicit language. Listener discretion is advised.
Sorry.
What's the trick in making my love stick? What's the trick?
Hello, and welcome to the Film Critic and the Common Man podcast. While other film podcasts might enjoy the festivities of a wake, we just like to sit in a room by ourselves and smoke. Every episode, we discuss a film from the perspective of a film critic and the perspective of a common man. We may not agree, but it certainly won't be boring. I'm your co-host, Ben Miller. I write about films for my own site, Ice Cream for Freaks, and I'm a member of the North Texas Film Critics Association, as well as the International Film Society Critics. You can hear me guesting on other pods as the David Thewlis of podcasting. I am joined by my brother and common man co-host, a man who definitely can rock a pencil-thin mustache, Jake Miller. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing all right.
I don't know about that.
I had, obviously we're both beard guys, but I mean, yours is much more prominent than mine is. But for a little while, I had just the mustache because I've always had a pretty good one. But man, just by itself, it just doesn't look right.
Yeah, we used to have what was it? No Shave November.
Yeah.
And like when I was working for the city, all we could do is grow a mustache. And
sure.
So I grew only a mustache one time, and I look super troopers.
It's like I look like a second tier porn star from the 70s.
Right.
Or like,
yeah.
It's like, oh, that's that guy probably parties. Like, yeah. So
yeah. He does a lot of coke. And
it's like
he's not that big.
Yeah. He gets the
got
job
a great
done.
stash.
Great, exactly. So with that tone, obviously going into this movie, Road to Perdition, the exact opposite type of movie we're talking about. Road to Perdition, directed by Sam Mendes, written by David Self, based on the graphic novel by Max Allan Collins and Richard Pierce Rayner, starring Tom Hanks, Tyler Hoechlin, Paul Newman, Daniel Craig, and Jude Law, co-starring Stanley Tucci, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Liam Aiken, Dylan Baker, and Kieran Hines. Opening on July 12th, 2002. Does not feel like a Christmas, like a summer movie, but I mean, is it's kind of oddly placed for the type of movie it is, but did do very well for the sake of what it is. $104.5 million in the US, 76.5 million international, 181 million on an $80 million budget, did just fine. Also did pretty well with the awards bodies, 6 Oscar nominations. Best Supporting Actor for Mr. Paul Newman, his last live action film role. Best Art Direction, Best Cinematography, Best Score, Best Sound, and Best Sound Editing. Won one of those, Best Cinematography for Conrad L. Hall. And then, Conrad L. Hall won that, but he was actually won that posthumously. He died right after the filming of this movie. This is the last movie he was a cinematographer on. Rotten Tomatoes, a little lower than I was actually expecting. 81% for critics, 86% audience. I kind of understand it. But it's not necessarily on the same level of what I agree with them about, but a little bit surprising as low as it was. I will go over the plot summary of Road to Perdition real quick. As we said, it's based on a graphic novel. This is based on the idea of essentially gangsters in 1931 during the Great Depression. Michael Sullivan is Tom Hanks. He is an enforcer for Irish mob boss John Rooney, played by Paul Newman. He has two children. The great Paul Newman, yes, his like I said, last live action film role. He is his sons. He has 2 sons, Michael and Peter. Michael played by Tyler Hoechlin in his debut role. He is an enforcer for the mob, but unbeknownst to his children, he's just a guy who goes to work every day and comes back. And then at a wake, essentially one of Rooney's associates, Finn McGovern, played by Kieran Hines, says that kind of insinuates that Rooney is responsible for his brother's death, the wake they're at. And Rooney sends his son Connor, played by a startlingly young Daniel Craig, and Michael, to talk with McGovern. Michael sneaks into the back of the car and sees Connor assassinate Finn, and then Michael kill the rest of the people. So at the time, you know, they find out that Michael's there. You know, Michael Sr. is like, okay, you can't talk about this. Connor is very kind of like, okay, well, whatever, and kind of walks away with it. You know, Michael Jr. is not exactly cool with everything. He's not really handling it very well. And this is kind of like, okay, well, life goes on as normal. Unfortunately, Connor decides to take it into his own hands to kill Michael to stop him from essentially telling the world what happened. And he accidentally kills, assuming it was Michael, he kills Peter and Michael's wife. That causes the pair of Michaels to go on the run, senior and junior. And Connor essentially Mr. Rooney says, he's like, well, you're my son, and even though you did this stupid, terrible thing, I'm going to be by your side. Michael goes to the mob boss affiliates, Frank Nitti, based on the real man, Frank Nitti, the number 2 for Al Capone, played by Stanley Tucci, and he says, like, well, you know, please, I'll start working for you. Just let me kill Connor. He's like, I can't really let you kill Connor because he's the, you know, Rooney matters and Connor matters. So as a result, they decide to steal money from mob banks in order to let them. It's like, we'll give up where Connor is and I'll stop stealing. Yeah.
Fund the road trip. And
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they start stealing from mob banks, and in response, the mob sends out an assassin named Harlan Maguire, played by a very pale and weirdly bald Jude Law. He's a crime scene photographer, but they're on the run after each other, and they're going back and forth. And Michael Jr. learns to love and respect his father. And essentially, after enough time has gone by, Michael kind of realizes what's going on. He realizes he has to kill Mr. Rooney in order to have the mob give up Connor's location. He does kill Mr. Rooney. They tell him where Connor is. He kills him, and everything seems like it's fine. And they go to the titular Perdition, and everything seems fine. But then Harlan catches up with him and shoots Michael Sr. Michael Jr. holds him at gunpoint, prepared to kill him, but Michael Sr. kills him instead, so allowing him to maintain his innocence. Yep. Michael Sr. dies, and Michael Jr. Goes back to a family that actually helped them at other times. He grows up on a farm and just kind of has this respect for his father. There's a lot of interesting parts to this movie that we want to get into. The main thing I want to start with is, okay, so this movie came out in 2002. I was 16 at the time. So whenever this movie came out, I saw it and I'm like, this thing is perfect. It's a masterpiece. It's everything I want it to be. This is the best film of the year. I saw it a couple of times at the time. And then as I got older, I hadn't seen it in a long time. And its reputation had not necessarily soured, but it kind of lessened in a lot of people in critical spaces. And so I was going on, I'm like, oh man, I'm probably misremembering it. It's probably not as good as I thought. So watching it this time, I went into it going like, okay, it's not a masterpiece. I'm probably going to be disappointed, and lowered my expectations. Then I watched the movie. I'm like, nope, it's great. It's really, really good. And it's funny. My mind betrayed myself, because it's like, well, a 16-year-old me was stupid. I'm double my age by now. Like, there's no way that this can be as good as it was.
No, I mean, it's great. I mean, I don't know.
I like
what
it. Yeah.
Would, I don't know. Like, I mean, it has aged just fine.
I thought so too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was waiting for, you know, okay, so maybe it's Paul Newman's last performance. It's more nostalgia than it is good. No, he's great in it. It's like, okay, maybe Tom Hanks is actually miscast. It's like, no, he's actually pretty perfect in the role. And it's like, maybe the kid's not very good. It's like, no, he doesn't really have to do a whole lot. He does what he needs to do.
Freaking awesome.
Yeah. It's all there. Like, so it's so funny, just because, like, I get it. This is a problem a lot with film criticism I have, is there'll be a movie that I'm like, man, I really like that movie. And for some reason, it's like, doesn't matter what kind of acclaim it had, everybody will just kind of decide this movie's not good. And it'll kind of be like, okay, I guess it's not good. And then I'll in my head go, wait, I like that movie. American Hustle is a movie that is a great example that I always use. It's a movie. It has Christian Bale and Bradley Cooper, and it's con artists and all this kind of stuff. Everybody always told me, it's like, yeah, that movie's not good. It's not well made. I'm like, I remember liking it. And every time I see it, I'm like, no, this is a good movie. I don't know why it falls under this kind of pretense of just coming like, this is not a good movie. I don't know where this ever came from.
Yeah, and I guess I'll come from the perspective of the common man, but it's like, if you like it, it's good for you.
Yeah. It doesn't,
For nobody else. I mean, if you hear critics say, the photography was, this or that, or, you can get off in the weeds and criticize it, but it's like, did you sit down for 2 hours and enjoy yourself and get intrigued with the story? And so,
I think maybe it has to, like, we're talking earlier about why it was released in July. I think it's an interesting kind of state about kind of what kind of movie this is. Like, the sheen of everything is so top tier of quality. Like, it is so beautiful. Every shot is gorgeous. The costumes are perfect. The setting, the environment, it feels like you're watching 1931. This is not a situation where you're like, oh, this is a set, or this is like, everything is very entrenched.
The music.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Thomas Newman score. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I was going to ask you who did it.
Yeah. Thomas Newman, one of the most, I mean, there were times where I thought it was a little too twinkly. And then there were other times where, like, man, it really hits the score in the right spot. I mean, Thomas Newman,
adds that tension.
Thomas Newman doing one of your favorite scores did the Shawshank Redemption score. So there you go. So, I mean, all that, he has a long and storied history of Oscar nominations. That being said, I think he's one of the most nominated persons to ever not win. He has gotten, let's see, 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 Oscars, 15 Oscar nominations, never won. He is, he has done the score. He has gotten Oscar nominations for the scores of The Shawshank Redemption, Little Women, Unstrung Heroes, American Beauty, Road to Perdition, Finding Nemo, Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events, The Good German, WALL-E, original song from WALL-E, Skyfall, Saving Mr. Banks, Bridge of Spies, Passengers in 1917.
Damn.
Thomas Newman. There's some bangers in there. And you think you're like, now I'm not a musical score guy, but a couple of them, like, oh man, Finding Nemo score. I like that little music. The music in the background is great for that one. And and when that's always kind of like, if I don't care about the music and I think about the music, that probably says something. And the music in this one is really great. But so, like I was saying, like everything. Exactly.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. So like all the sheen, it's so perfect, but it's kind of a popcorny movie. It just kind of has a little higher value than what you would expect.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, I mean, a great musical score on a movie. Yeah. You almost don't notice it.
Yeah.
You feel the tension or it fits the mood, I guess.
Yes.
What I've ever seen.
I mean, think about the last 15 minutes of The Last of the Mohicans if there wasn't any music. It's an entirely different ending of that movie, from running up the hill and the battles and that score in the background. It's just that without that score, that movie doesn't really work. That ending doesn't work the same way. And there's a lot of this movie. And so we'll go and get into the father-son drama of it all, because that's the main part of this movie. And not just the father-son of Michael Sr., Michael Jr., of, this father and son who don't really know each other and kind of learn to understand each other where they come from as they grow. But it's also the other side of Rooney and Connor, because the entirety of this narrative is brought forward by Connor screws up. Connor can't stop making mistakes, but he's my son. And despite it all, I still love the stupid guy.
Yeah. I mean, that's love.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, it sucks. And especially like within a business, I mean, because normally if someone's working for you and they're a big fuck up, then
yeah, you fire him. That's that. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's your kid, and then your go-to guy, Mike Sullivan, the guy that busts his ass and will do anything for you. You're like, yeah, but you're not blood.
Yeah, it's I love you like a son, but you're not a son.
But I have a son.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's Munich, the film Munich by Steven Spielberg. There's a special line in there where the Eric Bana has kind of this relationship with the guy who's giving them information, and he's talking to this guy, and his son is right next to him, and he says, "You could be my son, but you're not. Remember that." Like that's essentially the kind of motif of this movie, where without that, like, he'd do anything for Michael except betray my son. And that's kind of the line I won't cross whatsoever.
Right.
So, and the gangster side of this, I remember, like, for some reason, I remembered it being much more action filled when I was a kid, or when I was younger, and watching it this time, it's like, no, this is much more a somber, meditative, like, there's a little bit of action here and there, but it's not by no means a gruesome shoot 'em up. This is not The Untouchables.
Right. Yeah, no, this is much more a father-son thing. It's set amongst violence.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. Yeah,
the setting, but it's not the story.
And it's also something Michael Sr. is trying desperately. Like, he uses violence as a tool, but he's trying desperately to not have Michael Jr. be a part of this. So, I mean, that's the entire, and once that scene, okay, we'll go and talk about this now. So that Hanks Newman scene down in the church, that's I always say movies always kind of know whenever there's a point happening, like, okay, we need to step back and give this scene the breath and patience that it needs. And that scene in the basement is that scene where the movie's like, okay, this is the banger of the movie. Let's bring it forward. And Newman is incredible, and Hanks is great. And they said, just like, none of us are going to see heaven. He's like, Michael could, and then do everything in your power to make that happen. That's the thing going forward. Woo! Just, oh man. And it's so good.
And I'll say that scene, what I can really connect with, and I think I've said before, is like, your favorite movies, I think, are things that you can relate to.
Sure.
You can actually feel. And obviously I used to be a police officer, and then my sweet little 7-year-old son one day said, I'm going to be a cop one day. And my heart just broke, because I'm like, no, you're a sweet, innocent, good kid. Yeah. And I don't want you to see any of that.
Yeah. Because
I don't want you exposed to any of that. It's I don't know. You want to save your children's innocence, I guess.
It's the idea of the romanticism of, when you're a kid, the romanticism of a profession, be it firefighting or in the military, or a police officer, a doctor, any of those jobs. It's just the romantic aspects of, helping people and doing the right thing and all this kind of stuff, protecting, all that kind of stuff. And then whenever you're an adult, you realize the reality of the situation. And it's like, well, it's not that simple. And it's much darker than you would ever believe.
Yeah. So scraping a crackhead out of an alley or something.
Yeah. Something like that. I mean, so
chasing a psychopath down a dark alley at 4 a.m. or something. Yeah.
So this movie is the end of the famous Tom Hanks run. And this is his first time where he tries to be essentially unlikable, relatively unlikable. Not unlike, excuse me. I don't think unlikable is the right word. Anti-heroic, but at the same time, he's still heroic. I mean,
yeah.
And he's a murderer,
Anti-hero.
and he's a murderer, and he's very aware that he's a murderer.
Yeah.
It's not the type of role you would expect Tom Hanks to play. But I mean, this is the end of the League of Their Own, Sleepless in Seattle, Philadelphia, Forrest Gump, Apollo 13, Toy Story, That Thing You Do, Saving Private Ryan, You Got Mail, Toy Story 2, Green Mile, Castaway, Catch Me If You Can, Road to Perdition. In a row. I didn't leave anything out. It is an unrepeatable run. I refuse to believe anybody can ever repeat anything. And
I really hope he can afford his mortgage. Good Lord. Can you imagine?
Well, I mean, and yeah, I think his net worth, I think, is in the 9 figures. So, I mean,
I don't doubt it.
But I mean, and him in this movie, it's much more like subdued. All the charisma that you're used to with Tom Hanks is not there, because that's not what the role calls for. All the charisma essentially is allowed around him to happen. Like, all the more charismatic things is like Daniel Craig being a slimy turd. Our third Daniel Craig movie in this podcast history, by the way, back to back.
I know. I was thinking about that. Yeah.
And oddly,
like unintentionally.
And oddly, he's been an American in every movie. Like, he's never been British. The two Knives Out, and then this one. But I mean,
true.
Craig's great. Craig also in Munich, but like, Craig is he's
is he in every movie?
Man, that man works. The man works. Daniel Craig's great in this, and he does so well to be slimy without being like overdoing it. Like, he's essentially watching him. One of the more interesting scenes I saw was him smiling as he watches Tom Hanks and Paul Newman play piano, where he's like, oh crap. Like, it's like, I'm always going to strive to be this guy, but I'm going to be this screw up of a kid.
He's desperately seeking his father's approval.
Desperately.
But he's such a fuck up that whenever he tries to go above and beyond and like, look, Dad, I solved this problem.
Yeah.
Paul Newman slaps him around and shit.
I cursed the fucking day you were born. Yeah. And then immediately, yeah. I mean, it's probably born out. It's more than anything, it's probably born out of insecurity. He's sitting there like, it's like, well, you know, I'm supposed to be the number one of this guy, and I'm not, and I can't stand for that. And
yeah,
it's like, whenever they find out that Michael Jr. had witnessed everything, his reaction was by no means threatening. He was kind of like, here's my opportunity. This is my chance to figure this out.
I'm a big boy.
Show him a big boy. Really great. Okay, so let's talk about Newman, because I mean, I don't think we've talked more glowingly about a man than as we did about him in Cool Hand Luke. But I mean, in this movie, he's gone for good chunks of this movie. He was in it a lot less than I remember him being. But but every time he's in it, the great thing about having Paul Newman, especially at this point in his career, the movie respects him, and every actor respects him, and and the character is is in the respectable position. So everybody is already built in to be like, this is Paul Newman. We're not going to step over this guy's toes. And at the same time, he's very gracious as a performer, so he's not like overdoing it. He's a very genial figure. So I mean, even in his death,
you know, spoiler alert.
Died about 3 years after this movie. Yeah.
But no, I'm saying the death in this
Oh,
movie.
yes.
It's a very, he dies with grace because Tom Hanks' character, Mike Sullivan, he doesn't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, he says, I'm glad it was you.
Yeah.
And he hoses him down, and Hanks does a great job of portraying that pain.
Yes. And you know, and like you said, even going down with grace, he's Tommy gunned from 5 feet away. But even that, he's like, well, we're not going to show that. We have the grace. We this is Paul Newman's last film role. We're not going to have him be blown away. He is, but it's and that entire sequence in general of the audio going out, you can't hear the gunshots, all those guys getting shot, Newman just realizing what's going on, the rain just pouring, and then the conversation between the two. It's a great another show off for Conrad L. Hall. Yeah. So
I love that scene. It's the same as you know, none of us will see heaven. And whenever he says, I'm glad it was you.
Yeah. You're just like, oh,
he accepted his fate. He's like, I ain't going to heaven and I'm going to die.
Right now. It's like, I'm not
going to get me.
Yep.
And it's like, awesome. Finally, the day is here. And it's someone that I will, if anyone's going to take me out, I want this dude to do it.
It's not some rando. It's not slow. It's going to be quick. And I'm going to be down by somebody I respected. It's like, this is acceptable to me. Yep.
Exactly. I mean, it's like losing a game. It's like, okay, I lost.
I've lost. Yep. And that comes with the years of experience too. And Newman is great and Hanks is great in that scene. Okay. So I want to talk about Conrad L. Hall. We talked a little bit about him in the Cool Hand Luke episode. Snubbed for an Oscar nomination for that movie, cinematography for that one, obviously with the famous shot of the sunglasses and the car going by from Cool Hand Luke. But Conrad L. Hall, a long storied history of just outstanding cinematography. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid famously won him an Oscar for that. Exceptional in that one. Obviously, a long career with Paul Newman. Won an Oscar a couple years before this for American Beauty, another Sam Mendes film, and then Road to Perdition, winning the posthumous nominee, and won. I believe at the time. Let's see here. Posthumous winners haven't happened very often. Let's see here. So the first ever winner of a posthumous Oscar was the writer of Gone with the Wind. He died in a car wreck a couple of weeks before the ceremony in 1939. Charlie Chaplin won an Oscar a couple of years after, and he had collaborators who had died whenever he won. So now this is actually a speaking film.
Charlie Chaplin was a pedophile.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that going around. you take that's the problem. That's always the problem with old Hollywood history. Oh yeah, art and artists. Elvis, same thing. Like you just kind of have to go, well, that is what it is. Famously, Best Actor winner Peter Finch in 1977 for the film Network. I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. He died of a heart attack a couple of weeks before that. The one of the songwriters from Beauty and the Beast died of AIDS right before the ceremony. Then Conrad L. Hall, and then the most recent was a documentary director, Gil Friesen from 20 Feet of Stardom. Most famously, though, Heath Ledger, obviously for Dark Knight. So one of many posthumous nominees and winners. But Conrad Hall, maybe the biggest winner for me in this movie. Like every shot is just so. And Tom Hanks specifically said whenever he was making this movie, he's like, usually when you're making a movie, it's on a set and you see wires and you're stepping over cranes. It's like, that didn't happen in this movie. It's like, you just look around, you're like, okay, I'm in 1931 Chicago. It's like, that's just, and it shows everything is just blended in and it is impeccable. The shot of Daniel Craig smoking, puffing out smoke. There was one scene, I think it was whenever they're at the diner and Harlan, Jude Law is coming over the hill.
Yes.
And it's all foggy and you see those lights. I'm like, oh man, he did it again.
Yep.
It's just
Yeah.
top to bottom. It's great.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, you ever drive at night? I mean, that's
all those kind of cool little.
yeah.
And
You can relate to, like,
absolutely.
whenever you capture it on film, it's
magic. Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
It's just like, yes, that's the way it is.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. A lot of cool supporting actors in this movie. Obviously, we talked about. Oh, by the way, so Tyler Hoechlin is still working as an actor.
Is he? I was going to ask about. That. Yeah.
He is. He's been in little bits of things. He was in a. He's in a movie called Everybody Wants Some, from director Richard Linklater. He did like he's a Texas guy. It's about baseball players in college. I've heard really good things about that. Does a little bit of movie stuff, not a whole lot. More famously, he's on TV. He was in MTV redid a version of Teen Wolf, and he was on that. It's a more serious version of Teen Wolf. It was a show that was on for a long time, but more famously, he is on the CW, the equivalent of WB or whatever it is. And he is Superman. He is Superman on television as Clark Kent in shows called Legends of Tomorrow, Superman and Lois. That's essentially what he is known for. Really handsome kid these days. Like I find him in this movie. I think he's great.
Yes.
He's exceptional as a kid actor. He was a huge. He was in like little Disney stuff before that, but I mean, like this is the thing that made him.
He's outstanding in this movie, but like once you're a CW actor, then I'm like, all right.
It's one of those
retirement home.
He's getting checks. He's making checks. He's doing.
Hey, I don't blame you.
I don't blame him either. And
make your cheddar.
Make it. It's a good way to put it. Yeah. So I mean, really, really good in this movie. Doesn't have to do a whole lot, but more than anything, does what he needs to do. Really liked him. Liked Peter, the brother, Liam Aiken, in his first role as well. Annie Sullivan, the Michael's wife, played by Jennifer Jason Leigh. Kieran Hines as Finn McGovern, always great to see him in pretty much everything. Tucci as Frank Nitti, always. It's alarming to see a younger Tucci with a full head of hair. It's just, and then Dylan Baker as Alexander Rance, the accountant who is particular about his breakfast. Always nice to see those
boiled egg or poached egg or something.
Yes, it's like it has to be runny or whatever. It's like okay, like never happier to see a guy. Yeah, so I mean,
I would have killed him anyways.
That was the biggest advantage of him accidentally dying. You're like, okay, sucks regardless. This originally they were supposed to have Al Capone in it, played by a longtime Australian actor Anthony LaPaglia, but he got cut from the film just because I don't think you need Capone in this movie. You have Nitti, and he's kind of works there. Okay, so I've been dancing around Jude Law because Jude Law we talked about it in our Lobster episode about Colin Farrell's career. Like Colin Farrell, there's like, okay, you're very, very handsome. You're charismatic. You're going to be a movie star.
Yeah. That
didn't really work out. So he transferred to being more of a character actor. Jude Law is in the exact same boat, except this is the first time he gets to be a character actor. Like it's almost alarming because Jude Law is such a handsome, good looking human being. When he first gets in this movie, you're like, this is strange. And this is peak handsome Jude Law. He is, I'm assuming, I would think he was, what's the word? Almost jaundice, but what's it whenever cirrhosis? He kind of has that look. He kind of has a look to him, but he doesn't really drink much in the movie.
Yeah. Could be a liver problem
but I mean, they do
a good job of making him look like this.
Oh no, no. Jake. Well, to your favor, you are actually very domed up there, and his is almost like okay, he's just trying to hang on to whatever he has left. But I mean,
Yeah.
I
Shave
think
that shit off, man.
it's like yeah, we're not all blessed with these huge quaffs, but I mean, and Jude Law kind of has this. I'm surprised at how creepy he was in this movie. I didn't like he is fully there.
He's fucking weird in this.
And that's great scene in the diner where
Yes.
where Jude Law talking to Tom Hanks and probably both
Coffee there.
and probably both from the moment they walk in know exactly who the other is.
Mm-hmm.
It's like okay, how are we going to play this?
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's an interesting dynamic is like when you're playing a game with someone, but you're both acting like you're not playing a game with each other.
They're
But
both
playing a game with each other.
Yeah. Oh, I'm Michelle Machine Parts, and I'm drunk, and da 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 da. And by the way, this is another entry in the long storied history of Tom Hanks peeing in movies. Peeing, yes. I'm not sure if you know this about. So there are certain actors, for some reason, they have little tricks, the little things they like to put in every single one of movies. Like Denzel Washington will always kiss something like that a lot. He does it all the time. Harrison Ford points. Tom Hanks pees. I don't know why. He just does. Think of the Castaway, the famous scene.
Water.
And not to mention he's in the bathroom whenever the plane crashes. The famous peeing scene in A League of Their Own. Green Mile, whenever he has the urinary tract infection. Needing to pee at Forrest Gump whenever he's at the White House. It's a thing. He's like, I had to pee.
Is Tom Hanks actually R. Kelly?
A little more in common than you would expect.
Fetish.
And you know, the money pit, he falls into he falls into a thing and a statue pees on his head. It's a thing. It's always a thing. I don't know why it's the case. It's I'm glad I brought this to you. I'm not sure you're aware. Now you're not going to
be troubled.
One of your childhood heroes is broken too.
Yeah, now I'm like, shit. I'm trying to think of other movies like.
Oh yeah, I mean. Okay, so he has a famous story where he told a story. He was at the Golden Globes, and he found himself in a bathroom standing next to Tom Selleck, and he's at the stall, and he looks over and sees Tom Selleck, and he nudges him and says, "I guess we're both a pair of peeing Toms." And he said his angry silence I will never forget. I mean, yeah, it's so strange. I need to find more of this because you're right. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, there's got to be more than just those couple. Sorry, off track. So, all right, this seems like a good time to do it. Every week I go through the filmography of a filmmaker and put Jake's cinematic knowledge to the test. It is time for Poll for a Dumbass. For this week, we are talking about the supporting actor from this movie. It is Mr. Jude Law, an impossibly handsome man. It's these days he's
much like myself.
Thank you. I appreciate that one. Get an early start in a lot of smaller films, not really in a whole lot. Kind of. It's always funny whenever you see people like this. You're like, well, like they're talking about like Matt Damon and Ben Affleck being a good example. And it's like, oh man, these guys were little like actors for all these years and didn't really get anywhere. It's like, but they're so handsome. How handsome and charismatic. How did they not be famous faster? I don't know why it happens the way it does, but whatever. So he was in little stuff. He gained finally some traction in 1997. I'm going to give you a bonus point if you have. I don't have this on here, but have you seen The Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil?
Nope.
Okay, so it's a Southern Gothic Clint Eastwood movie.
I've read the Bible though.
I mean, that's close enough. No, it's Southern Gothic movie. He's in that one, but that's not really what first brought him to prominence. The first movie he ever brought him to prominence was alongside husband and wife Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman in the sci-fi movie Gattaca.
Oh,
I
don't know.
It's a I think it's like a perfect society where everybody is impossibly beautiful, and Ethan Hawke I think is somehow like the one on the side who's like, no, this is not the case, and trying to expose everything. I have a feeling if you had seen it, you would know.
Yeah, so I'm gonna give it a no.
Okay. Well, that's understandable. So after Gattaca, he's kind of starting to become to a little more prominence. Gets in some other things. He's in a David Cronenberg movie called Existence. That one is in and of itself interesting, but we're not going to talk about that one. He got an Oscar nomination in 1999 for the character of Dickie Greenleaf in The Talented Mr. Ripley. Matt Damon being Mr. Ripley, and he is a murderous man who essentially wants to live the fine life and will do whatever it takes to do so. It is Philip Seymour Hoffman and Kate Blanchett and Gwyneth Paltrow alongside Matt Damon and Jude Law. So he gets his first Oscar nomination in 1999. I want to tell you the lineup for the Oscar nominations for Best Supporting Actor in 1999. Jude Law was nominated for that. Also nominated, the winner was Michael Caine in The Cider House Rules.
Yep, that's a good flick.
Tom Cruise in Magnolia, maybe his best performance. He's exceptional in that movie. And the other two who didn't win, Michael Clark Duncan in The Green Mile.
Oh my God.
And Haley Joel Osment in The Sixth Sense.
Michael Clark Duncan should have
that's your winner. He's exceptional in that movie. I agree.
Good Lord. Yeah.
a killer category. So he gets his first Oscar nomination in 1999. It essentially, like, everybody goes, okay, this is the next guy. He's going to be a movie star, and let's make this happen. So it's kind of slow going. In 2001, he makes a pair of movies. One he makes with Steven Spielberg. It's a supporting character, and he's an android. Have you seen AI, Artificial Intelligence?
Yeah.
He's really good in it. I don't love the movie.
No,
it's a little. There's a lot to try to get on board with. Now,
all right. I just watched a movie. That's how I felt about it.
On the flip side, the other movie he did in 2001 as Vasily Zaitsev in Enemy at the Gates.
Yes, sir.
You love it.
Movie.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
I remember when it came out, we were overseas.
Yes.
And we were somewhere in Europe, I think.
I think you're correct.
I don't remember where, but I remember seeing the posters, and
it had a different title.
Yes. Yeah. They retitled it for different
Stalingrad, I think.
Stalingrad or something.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't Enemy at the. Yeah. But yeah. Great movie.
Good one. Yeah. I like it too. Yeah. So he makes Road to Perdition.
Rachel Weisz, great in it. Yep.
Ray Fiennes. No, excuse me, not Ray Fiennes. Joseph Fiennes. The other Fiennes. I can only keep my Fiennes so straight.
They all Fiennes.
So he makes Road to Perdition in 2002. His second Oscar nomination, his first one for lead actor, 2003, in the star-studded Trying Way Too Hard movie Cold Mountain.
Yeah.
It's there's parts of it I really like, and Jude Law is one of the parts that I like, but there's a lot about it I'm just like, this is a lot. And by the way, every actor known to man is in that movie. Charlie Hunnam is in it. Jack White. Philip Seymour Hoffman shows up for a little bit. Natalie Portman's in it for 5 minutes. But
Renee Zellweger, right?
Yes, she got an Oscar for that. One of the worst performances I've ever seen win an Oscar.
I can't stand Renee Zellweger.
She's hit or miss for me, but I mean, big miss on Cold Mountain. I don't like. So
no, I can't stand her.
Yeah.
Renee Zellweger, Westboro Baptist Church. Can't stand you.
What what a comparison. Good for you, buddy. That and like the chutzpah to do that. I'm proud of you. Okay,
Hey.
so
I don't know how she got a job.
So gets his second Oscar nomination in Cold Mountain in 2003. 2004 is the Jude Law year. Makes 6 movies. And I won't include Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events because he's just like the narrator. He's not really in that much. But I am going to include the other 4. A ensemble movie and Jude Law playing up his smugness in the best possible way. I Heart Huckabees.
Nope.
It's a tough movie to get on board with. If you watch it, I'm pretty sure you'd hate it. There's a lot of people in it, a lot of people doing interesting things, a really interesting Mark Wahlberg performance. Dustin Hoffman, Lily Tomlin, bunch of people in the movie.
Never even heard of it.
Naomi Watts, lots of people. A famous YouTube video, Lily Tomlin arguing with the director, and they keep yelling back and forth at each other, and Dustin Hoffman's kind of sitting in the corner. So the same year, a remake of a previous Michael Caine movie made the movie Alfie. You know that one? He is a Lothario, and that's essentially what he does. He's a
Lothario.
Like a handsome swinging dick man who just goes around and loves all the ladies, and he's handsome. That's his thing. And then he'll turn to the camera and say something. It's not very good movie.
My vocabulary.
It's a not very good movie. The original was much better. He just tried to catch something that wasn't there. Okay, so also I'm not going to include this one from 2004. Pretty sure you've seen it, but he makes a cameo as Errol Flynn in The Aviator.
Yes, I've seen it.
You like The Aviator?
Not really.
There's a lot there that just doesn't like. Okay, I get all the ingredients, but there's just like, yeah. Yeah, so I won't include the. So I might give you The Aviator, but
give me a bonus point here.
Well, he's 2004 is a tough one. So his most acclaimed movie from that year got a couple Oscar nominations for Clive Owen and Natalie Portman. The love square of those two, plus Julia Roberts and Jude Law in Closer.
Yes.
It is one of the most memorable cinematic experiences of my life, because there is a gigantic blow up scene between Clive Owen and Julia Roberts where he wants to know about her cheating on him.
Right.
And I was watching.
Yeah.
It's very intense. Yeah. And I was watching this at the time with a girlfriend of mine. I was watching it a girlfriend at the time in the theater, and we're watching it. We're like, I thought this was a date movie. But yeah. So the other movie he makes in this year, if you have seen this, I might just give you a perfect score for this because I'll be shocked, because I'm not sure Jude Law's mom saw this movie. As the titular character, Joseph Sutherland, Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow.
Nope.
Okay. So this is kind of one of
That's
those
a stupid title. And I don't care what it is. I wouldn't watch it.
So it's kind of like a throwback to it's like a sci-fi action adventure film. It's kind of like a throwback to like a plane, like a fighter pilot movie from World War One.
Flash Gordon or something.
More like the Red Baron, but with sci-fi aspects.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a lot to it. It is what it is. All right. So moving on past 2004, where he tried to hit on everything and didn't really hit on anything, he finally makes his big money-making movie in 2006 with The Holiday.
Yeah.
A movie I don't really love that.
No.
It's a favorite of my wife, but it's like it's not. I don't think it's very well done, but that's just me. So he kind of he tries to still try to do some big name stuff, and it never really works. He kind of takes a step back and starts to do like more supporting characters. How about as Dr. John Watson in 2009 Sherlock Holmes?
No.
You
I
haven't seen it. It's really, it's
No.
good. It's really good.
Yeah, I've heard about it. And it's just one of those I just haven't.
It's a fun watch. I highly recommend it just because it's fun to go watch. He eventually made the sequel to that as well. I probably won't include that. Okay, so in the last 2 years, the most viewed movie Jude Law has seen of Jude Law's of his movies, the one that has been seen the most is this one from 2011 for obvious reasons, Contagion.
Yes.
A really creepy movie, especially in hindsight. I don't know why people want to watch it now that as soon as COVID hit.
See, I heard like that movie and
Outbreak.
what's the one? Huh?
Outbreak?
Yes. Outbreak.
The Dustin Hoffman and Morgan Freeman. Yeah.
Yeah. And then a lot of apocalyptic movies, like zombie movies and everything. But the crazy thing is I think when people can relate to it.
You're not wrong. You're like, oh man, we should have seen like in Contagion. I think the thing, whenever you get infected, I think half the people in the world die. You're like, geez, like, and but I haven't seen it in a long time. I'm the exact opposite. As soon as the pandemic hit, I was like, I don't want any part of these type of movies. This is going to freak me out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I didn't want nothing to do with it.
Yeah, I agree. So he's doing more character actor stuff, doing some really interesting things. Does a lot of supporting roles. Doesn't really make another movie where he's the star until have you seen the movie Side Effects? He is I believe he is he's a psychiatrist to Rooney Mara, who Rooney Mara kills her husband, who is played by Channing Tatum, and his essentially diagnosis and whatever pills she gives is kind of blamed for the reason she does it. It's a really interesting movie. I recommend you. That's a very adult, like when I say adult, I mean not like sexy adult. I mean like, a grown-up movie. It's a good one.
What's it called?
Side Effects.
Side Effects.
Yes, good. I really like that one, but I'm not necessarily surprised you haven't seen it. Now, maybe you've seen this one, more the comedy side of things. I don't know your feelings on Melissa McCarthy, but along the lines of the Melissa McCarthy fun, how about the movie Spy?
Yes.
Yes, really fun in that one. He really plays into his, I'm a James Bond type. Might have been considered for James Bond at one point, but I'm not too sure. Okay, so I think that's okay. I'm going to give you some bonus points if you've seen any of them, because there's a lot of stuff he does. He does do some franchise stuff. The Fantastic Beasts movies, the Harry Potter post sequels. I don't know if you'd seen any of those.
Nope.
I haven't either. And then also joining the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Captain Marvel. I think he's dark orange or something. He's an alien. So that's about it. It's really spotty, interestingly. It
is. Yeah.
Kind of all over the place. But so
really it's this movie and
Enemy at the Gates.
Enemy at the Gates that
you're just like, I like Jude Law. Yeah. I like whenever
him in those two things, and I'm like, I don't know what else he's done.
So you got 8 out of 17. I'm not really surprised actually when I went through that. I was like, okay, well that sounds like he doesn't have a very mainstream. 8 out of 17. Enemy at the Gates, AI, Artificial Intelligence, Cold Mountain, Closer, The Holiday, Contagion, Spy, and The Aviator. I'll give you as the extra. Got 2 movies coming out soon. He's in this movie, independent movie where he plays Henry VIII. It's called Firebrand. Sure. And they're remaking another Peter Pan movie, and he's playing Captain Hook.
Is he going to have to get fat?
That's a good question. Because, famously, Henry VIII, not exactly the smallest man. And the last wife. So, I mean, he's the fattest he has been. So that's a good question. More along the lines. Fat suit, I guess. I don't know. And then they're making another Peter Pan movie, Peter Pan and Wendy, coming out later this year, and he plays Captain Hook. So,
We'll see.
I'm not a big
Can
fan.
someone have an original goddamn idea one of these things?
These live action remakes of these children's classics, I'm not exactly a fan of. I agree with you. But well,
there ain't no more ideas left.
8 out of 17, not too bad, buddy.
All right.
All right. I think it's about that time, bud.
Man, I'm sorry.
That happens.
But, you know, you're in the hot box.
Each episode, instead of me steering the conversation, Jake peppers me with a series of questions that I must answer truthfully. Sometimes it's just trivia. Sometimes it is not. What do you have for me today?
All right. So I really don't have a ton of questions for you. I'll kind of point out some things I love about this movie and then ask you how you feel about it.
Okay, great.
I love this scene, or I think it's the ending scene, whenever Michael Jr. says his greatest fear was his son would follow on the same road.
Yes.
And that's the last time I ever held a gun.
Yeah.
And I love that Michael Sr. sacrifice, he's like, I've killed tons. I'll do it.
One more is not going to matter. Yeah.
And my little boy is not going to have to do it. And he's not going to have to go down the road that I did. You know? I love that part.
I do too. It's a nice little touch. Like, and the entire time he's sitting there looking at him like, don't kill him. Don't kill him. By the way, though,
he's shaking his head.
Michael Jr., great hold of that gun for a kid who doesn't really hold a gun much.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So this is a great father and son movie.
Yes.
And I think that's why I like it so much.
Yeah.
And so whenever Michael Jr. Witnesses this mob hit, then Daniel Craig's character talking to Tom Hanks' character, trust him, and he goes, "He's my son."
And that kind of puts everything to rest. It's like that. It's
like you can trust me, you can trust him. He's my son.
Yep. That's a good, I really like that part too. Yeah.
I love at the end, there's a monologue at the end by Michael Jr.
Yeah.
And he says, I asked, was my father a good man or a bad man or whatever?
Yeah.
And he said, he was my father.
Yeah.
I love the concept of, like, Ben, is your kid a good kid?
He's my son. Yep. It does.
So you're a reflection of your children, and your children are a reflection of you.
And not even what you just said also like bookends the entire story of like, can he keep a secret? He's my son. Was he a good man? He was my father. It's like, that doesn't really, everything else doesn't matter. It
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It's that relationship. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. That's a really good way to put that.
I love that. And I mean, even like Rooney, protecting his piece of shit son.
Yeah. You're just like, well,
like, he's my son. What?
And in the church basement, he said, you are asking me to give him the key to his room and kill him. And I'm not going to do that. It's like, they're going to kill him. It's like, cool. They're going to kill him. I'm not going to be the one to deliver him.
Yep.
It's a good way to put it. Yeah. I really like that as well.
Yeah. All right. So I kind of think, this movie, I feel like the boy meets his hero.
Yes. Yes.
They say never meet your hero.
Yes.
you know, it's like I adored Michael Jordan when I was a kid.
Sure.
And then
A great
like,
example.
as an adult, I'm like, he's a giant asshole.
Yeah, he's like, well, why was he so good? He's like, oh, he's so good at basketball. It's like, well, that doesn't matter. It's like he's terrible to everybody in his life. It's that there's a Dave Chappelle joke about O.J. Simpson. It's like, how can you cheer for that murderer? It's like, excuse me, that murderer ran for over 2,000 yards in a season. It's like, it's like,
Yeah.
Where do you?
So I think that's you know, obviously Michael Jr. learns that his dad is a ruthless killer.
Yep.
He's an extraordinarily violent man.
Extraordinarily, yep.
And so there's a loss of innocence there, but then at the same time, you know, Mike is trying to shield Michael Jr.
And you know, if you think about it, like he didn't know his dad. He didn't know who he was until those 6 weeks, because that entire time he's like, well, it's like our relationship is one of a man who works, comes home, sees me, and hides himself. And then in those 6 weeks, he got to actually show who he was,
right,
and expand on that. That was a nice change of pace. And it's just like, okay, well, all this, what I normally expect from my father is not there. Yes.
Yeah. 6 weeks on the road, 1931. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So let's see. Friday night into Saturday morning, I drove 10 hours.
Sure.
I got back about 3 a.m.
Okay.
It was a brutal freaking trip. My back hurt. I was tired. It was terrible.
Yeah.
20-something hour day. What's the longest road trip you've ever had? I know you're on the road with that with the baseball team.
Yeah. We regularly took 13 hours down from the top of Texas to the bottom of Texas, and it would be 13 Brownsville and Edinburgh and Harlingen. And then our shortest trip was 5 hours to San Angelo. And then you'd go to Laredo, which is about 10 hours. Harlingen, Edinburgh is about 12. And then you go to Alexandria, Louisiana, which is about 12, 13. So, I mean, that's about average. I know you've gone back and forth from California to Texas. I've never driven that much in a day. And not to mention, I was thinking about that during this movie. It's like, it's one thing to be driving as much as you're driving, but in the cars of 1931, can you imagine how your back feels?
Well, and just think, no air conditioning, no heater, no radio, probably.
You're bored.
You know?
Keep reading the Lone Ranger over and over again.
Yeah, your dad keeps killing people.
Though you get to be so I want to ask you this.
You're a getaway driver.
You're a getaway driver. I want to ask you this. Can you drive a stick?
Not well.
Not well. I'm the same way.
I can, but I'm a grind it till you find it kind of guy.
Yeah. My biggest fear in life is to be at a light and be ready to go into first gear, and somebody's way too close behind me. I'm like, oh no, I'm going to roll into them.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy because I ride motorcycles,
which are all,
it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Brake, clutch, shifter.
Well,
it's the same thing, but I learned how to ride a motorcycle on a motorcycle. I learned how to drive a vehicle in a automatic.
Yep.
And so like my habits just don't translate.
I agree. Mine doesn't either. And I learned how to do it, but I have no confidence in it, and I can. And if you say, okay, you need to drive from here to here, your life will depend on it. Okay. That's not going to be a problem, but yeah.
I'll take off running. All right. Let's see. Okay. Like I mentioned before, this is a very father-son.
Very.
you know, the paternalistic feelings are very high in this.
Very much so.
Like I said, even between Mike Sullivan Sr. and Rooney, well, so and like you said, the kid really doesn't discover his dad until they go on a road trip
Yeah.
together. I mean, he really doesn't understand the man.
Yeah.
What is your favorite memory with your father?
It's a good one. It's a great question. I have a weirdly specific one where he was like, we were just hanging out in his bedroom when I was a kid. It was just me and him hanging out. We weren't even doing anything specific. We were just like he was probably, deloading from work or something. And I was just like hanging out on the bed. I don't remember anything specific, like, oh, was there this big nugget of wisdom? No, just this. I just remember this specifically kind of tender, sensitive moment between us at the time. And I was probably 9 or 10 or something like that. And he was just in a good mood, just hanging out. Like that's always the one I go back to for some reason. And I'm with you. I always love the father son, obviously being boys. It helps that, father son, and then us having children ourselves, of having male children ourselves, is another big factor in all of those things. There's hundreds of great memories of we're at parks and we're at, fishing and swimming and all that kind of stuff. So it's not like it's just one thing. That's just the one thing that I always remember for some reason. Yeah. There's just little things that kind of poke out. Yeah. It shouldn't be an endearing memory, but it's something I always remember.
Right. It's something relatively insignificant, but those are the things that stick out.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. All right, bud. You're free to go.
I appreciate that. Before we go, what is your film rating for Road to Perdition? Is this an all-timer for you?
Yeah.
It is all-timer?
Yeah. It's probably, it's got to probably make top 20 at least.
2002 for me is one of the underrated film years of all time. And I love Road to Perdition. I really enjoy, even like my cynicism of like, oh, it's probably not as good as I remember. It's still exceptional. It doesn't make my top 10 from 2002. There are so many good movies from 2002 that I can't, but regardless, it's exceptional. I think I have it 4.5 out of 5 stars. So, I mean, I get it completely. All right. I think that just about does it for this episode of the Film Critic, the Common Man. Thank you so very much for joining us, everybody. You can follow me on Twitter at Neb has been on Letterboxd, at Neb810 on Instagram at Ben and Miller Movies. Check out my website, Ice Cream Freaks. You can follow my other writing at the Film Experience and Cinema Scholars, going back and forth with people about the Golden Globes nominations, Golden Globes this week. How are you feeling about the Oscar nominations, Jake, coming up? I have a feeling you've probably seen 2 nominees. Probably. You've seen Top Gun. Yep. You have you seen Elvis?
Nope.
Okay. Elvis is fine. It's good lead performance, but I know you don't care. This is the big difference between the two of us. It's like you could not care less about awards. And
no, it's either a good movie or a bad movie, and you either get paid or you don't get paid. Do your fucking job.
You can also find me on other pods on the David Thusa Podcasting. Jake, where can the people find you? Under the back seat of your father's car?
I'll be in Perdition.
I assume it's in Illinois. It looks like a lovely place.
It can't be in Illinois. It's on the beach.
They're the
Great Lakes?
Maybe, I don't know. Well, I have no idea. That's a good question. I should look. Wait, it's the title of the movie. We should know where Perdition is. But
I don't know. I'll be on the road.
Definitely on the road part. Literally and figuratively. Make sure to follow the podcast on Twitter at Critic Comment Pod. Please like, subscribe, rate, and review. Enjoy the show wherever you get your podcast. We got a fun one next week. We're going to try to keep it as non-R rated as we can. We are doing Boogie Nights, baby. I can't wait. Just know it's a comedy. Just it's going to be great. We're going to have so much fun to talk about. I can't wait for next week. Y'all guys have a good one. We'll catch you next time.
What's the trick? What's the trick? In making my love stick. What's the trick?